Despite the objections of Israel and the United States, the Vatican has decided to officially recognize a Palestinian state. Israel says it's disappointed in the decision, but many warn it could have profound consequences for the future of Jerusalem.
They also warn that the move could encourage more terrorism from Hamas and other Palestinians. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
In a new treaty, the Vatican switched its diplomatic recognition from the Palestinian Liberation Organization to the State of Palestine. Palestinian officials celebrated the decision.
We are indeed extremely encouraged by the Vatican's recognition of the State of Palestine. We also see this as a very positive development, not just politically, but in moral terms, in human terms, in legal terms, and it prepares for a whole new era in which Palestine will be seen by the whole world as a state.
Israeli sources told CBN News the Vatican's decision will not lead the Palestinian Authority back to the negotiating table or promote the peace process. They plan to study the agreement and decide what possible steps to take. Other groups, like the Zionist Organization of America, criticized the decision.
Because what they are instructing the Palestinians is that they can accomplish their ends by being in violation of accords, by pursuing unilateral steps as opposed to bilateral negotiations.
Some say the historic diplomatic move puts the Vatican and Pope Francis in the position of supporting a corrupt terrorist entity. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas is in the 10th year of a 4-year term, and he presides over a unity government that includes Hamas in the Gaza Strip, a terror organization sworn to Israel's destruction. The Palestinian Authority also sees Jerusalem as its future capital. That means most of all Jewish and Christian holy sites in the city would be in the hands of a Muslim Palestinian state. The Vatican's decision also adds to the diplomatic momentum to recognize a Palestinian state. The UN Security Council looks to be the next forum soon, where France is expected to introduce a resolution to recognize a Palestinian state. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Now, to say I'm shocked over this is an understatement. You've got to be kidding. I believe this recognition is going to go down in history alongside the Concordat of 1933 with Germany. When you look at what is behind Hamas, when you look at their declarations that they want to wipe Israel off the map, and they don't want to stop there. One of their purposes is to wipe out Jews worldwide. Why in the world would you make a peace agreement or recognition that they have some right? The real truth here, anyone who has looked at the history of Israel since 1948, you can't look even casually at it without the understanding that there could have been a state, an Arab state. The only condition that Israel has ever put on it, do you recognize Israel's right to exist? And if you will do that, you can have a state. By recognizing a state without that requirement, all we're doing is encouraging war. And we've learned through history, appeasement never works. It never works. You've got to have the firm commitment that if Israel has a right to exist in the land promised to them, if they have a right to exist, you must recognize that right, and you must have peaceful borders with them. Without that, you're not ever going to see peace. And regardless of the issue of Israel, why would a pope recognize a state that has decimated the Christian populations? I'm not talking about ISIS and what they're doing in Iraq. I'm talking about what, under the Palestinian Authority, has happened in the city of Bethlehem, has happened in the city of Nazareth, where you see wholesale exodus of Christians because of the persecution there. Why would you recognize them? I don't understand it, but again, this one is going to go down in history as a giant mistake. Well, in other news, anyone who says that Islam is a religion of peace needs to see the new message from ISIS, saying it's a religion of war. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, the ISIS audio message is supposedly from its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who has not been seen or heard from since November. In the message, which is posted online, al-Baghdadi calls on all Muslims everywhere to take up arms and fight on behalf of the group's self-styled caliphate. He says Islam was never a religion of peace. Islam is the religion of fighting. No one should believe that the war that we are waging is the war of the Islamic State. It is the war of all Muslims, but the Islamic State is spearheading it. It is the war of Muslims against the infidels. O Muslims, go to war everywhere. It is the duty of every Muslim. It was not immediately possible to verify whether the voice was al-Baghdadi's, who was reportedly wounded in an airstrike. President Obama has been trying to reassure nervous Arab allies about the upcoming U.S. nuclear deal with Iran. So he invited leaders of 6 key Arab states to a summit here in the U.S. But only 2 showed up, while the rest sent their representatives. And some skeptics question if the president has really been able to soothe the Arab countries' fears about a nuclear Iran. Lori Johnson has this story.
At the close of a summit held at Camp David, Maryland, President Obama said he assured our Mideast allies that the U.S. would help protect them against possible future attacks.
I am reaffirming our ironclad commitment to the security of our Gulf partners. As we've declared in our joint statement, the United States is prepared to work jointly with GCC member states to deter and confront an external threat to any GCC state's territorial integrity.
The president said that includes joint military training and a speedy transfer of arms and missile defense systems. Arab states have been skeptical of the president's nuclear deal with Iran, so he tried to assure them that such a pact would not leave the nations of the Gulf Cooperation Council more vulnerable.
What I did hear from our GCC partners was their agreement that if we can get a comprehensive, verifiable deal that cuts off the pathways to a nuclear weapon, that would be in their interests and the interests of the region as well as the world community.
But critics questioned the president's statement and say he didn't do enough to really assure the Arab states that the U.S. would be there to help them. The president also said he's working with international partners to investigate if Syrian President Bashar Assad's government is dropping chlorine bombs.
If we have the kinds of confirmation that we need, we will once again work with the international community and the organization charged with monitoring compliance by the Syrian government, and we will reach out to patrons of Assad like Russia to put a stop to it.
Chlorine isn't an internationally banned chemical agent, but its use as a weapon of war is prohibited. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Well, if you're like many Americans, you're tired of all that intrusive airport screening before you're able to board your flight. But few people are aware of the gaping security holes on the other side of the airport. Vulnerability so bad they make passenger screening almost worthless. Dale Hurd has the story.
Chicago's O'Hare Airport. An intruder strolls across the tarmac and surprises a gate agent by entering from the secure side of a terminal door. At Virginia's Dulles Airport, a skateboarder crawls under a security fence and rides away. In Detroit, a woman sneaks through a vehicle gate and runs toward a hangar with 3 knives before police finally nab her.
I worry every single day about the vulnerabilities that exist at a large airport like this and where those could be exploited.
An investigation by the Associated Press found that over the past decade, nearly 300 people have trespassed on what are supposed to be secure airport areas. And the investigation looked only at the nation's largest airports. The AP suspects the total national number of airport intrusions is much higher. Some of the trespassers are mentally ill, like the man being arrested in this surveillance video. Christopher McGrath got over fences at LAX multiple times in 1 year on a mission to board a flight. He was finally sent for psychiatric evaluation in federal prison.
You're asking yourself, how did that happen? Why did it happen? And what can we do to keep that from happening in the future?
All major airports have security crews patrolling perimeters.
Checking out the badge, man. Just checking out your badge. Appreciate it.
Some lawmakers say more needs to be done.
It's a matter of either increasing the personnel that we have on the ground, which is going to be imperfect, or it's a matter of making an investment in technology.
But even the latest technology may not be able to stop every intruder every time.
There's nothing that's that can't be penetrated. The White House has had that issue also.
Officials are worried that if airport perimeter security isn't fixed, all that annoying, expensive, invasive screening of airport passengers won't prevent an attack. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Turning now to Nepal, rescuers have recovered the bodies of 3 of the 8 people who were on a U.S. Marine helicopter when it disappeared earlier this week. This comes after a rescue helicopter located the wreckage of that missing chopper in the mountains northeast of Kathmandu. It was carrying 6 Marines and 2 Nepalese Army soldiers when it went missing Tuesday. Investigators say there are no chances of any survivors. The copter was on a relief mission. The death toll from the 2 major earthquakes in Nepal is now nearly 8,500, with more than 6,000 still getting medical treatment. CBN Disaster Relief is in Nepal providing food and desperately needed clean water to help the survivors after the devastating tragedy. Gordon?
Yes, this weekend we're going to be delivering 83 tons of relief supplies, medicine, food, water, temporary shelter to people in need in Nepal. Our teams coming in from CBN India are going to arrive in Nepal tomorrow. So if you want to be a part of the relief effort, all you have to do is call us and say, yes, I want to be a part of this. 1-800-759-0700, or you can log on to cbn.com, and on the giving page, there's a section where you can give directly to International Disaster Relief. So if you want to be a part of it, when you call, say, I want to give to Nepal, I want to give to the disaster relief there, or just log on to cbn.com. Do it now, 1-800-759-0700.